She looked me in the eye, bold as ever, and said, "My friends think you're not remarkable enough to represent me in my final project, so I could do better." That was the moment I stopped trying. I'd been her father for 17 years. Late nights, scraped knees, school projects, every birthday cake with her name and frosting. But apparently, none of that made the cut when it was time to stand beside her on stage. She picked her stepdad instead. The guy with the perfect smile and the paycheck to match. Then, on the day of the presentation, my phone rang 32 times. When I finally answered, her voice was shaking. "Dad." What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you're watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. I always thought being steady and reliable would count for something. I wasn't flashy, never tried to be. I didn't throw money around or walk into a room like I owned it. But I showed up. I was present. Every soccer game, every school play, every night she had a nightmare and needed someone to sit beside her bed until she fell asleep again. I was there. I thought that meant something. I thought it mattered. Turns out, it didn't. It was a Thursday, and I remember that because Thursdays are when I usually made dinner at my place. Something simple like stir-fry or spaghetti, something she always used to love when she was little. She was sitting at the kitchen island, phone in hand, typing with her thumbs like the screen might disappear if she blinked. Her hair was pulled back in that half-hearted ponytail she did when she didn't feel like trying. She'd been quiet the whole ride over. I figured it was just school stress. Senior year, college applications, friend drama. "So," I asked, casually, like it wasn't something I'd been wondering about all week, "who'd you end up picking for your family history project?" She paused. That should have been my first clue. Not a good pause, not a thoughtful one. This was the kind of pause that had weight behind it, the kind that prepares for something uncomfortable. She didn't even look up when she said it. "My friends think you're not remarkable enough to represent me, so I could do better." I felt it hit. Not like a punch. No, punches are quick. This was a slow ache that started somewhere deep in my gut and spread through my chest like a dull burn. My fork hovered in midair, a piece of overcooked carrot still speared on it. I blinked once. Twice. "I'm sorry, what?" "I mean," she shrugged, as if that would soften the blow. "It's a presentation. Everyone's trying to make theirs stand out. Ryan he's done more. Traveled, started a company. He's more impressive." Ryan. Her stepdad. The man who married her mother 2 years after our divorce finalized. The man with the manicured beard, the Tesla, the job in tech that nobody could ever clearly define. The man who posted inspirational quotes online like it made him a mentor instead of a middle-aged man trying too hard. "Then go find better," I said, and I meant it. Not out of anger. Not even spite. Just resignation. I set my fork down, stood up, and rinsed my plate in the sink like it was any other Thursday. Like she hadn't just confirmed what I'd been slowly suspecting for the last 2 years. I wasn't enough anymore. She didn't say anything else. She just went back to her phone, and I went back to pretending I didn't care. But that night, after she'd left, I sat in my car for 20 minutes in the driveway, staring out into the dark, trying to remind myself that parenting wasn't a performance. That being a father wasn't about applause. Still, it stung. The next few days passed like molasses. She barely texted. When I finally saw a picture from her project prep day, there he was, Ryan, standing tall next to her, pointing to a whiteboard, wearing a blazer like he was hosting a TED Talk. I tried not to look at it too long. Just closed the app and focused on work. But I won't lie. I waited. Some part of me hoped she'd change her mind. Call me. Ask me to step in. She didn't. And then came the day of the presentation. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because I was elbow deep in a plumbing fix, replacing a rusted valve under the sink. The kitchen was quiet, radio humming softly in the background. I hadn't expected anything from her that day. She hadn't invited me. I wasn't needed. At 10:34 a.m., I got the first call. I let it ring. By 10:38, there were 5. By 10:42, 12. By the time I reached for my phone, there were 32 missed calls from my daughter. No texts, just calls. I called back. She picked up before the first ring ended. "Dad, Her voice cracked on the word. It was small, shaky, and I could hear it, the panic. What's wrong? I stood up so fast I knocked the wrench off the counter. I need you. Please. Can you come to the school? What happened? Where's Ryan? He didn't show? He said he had a meeting. I'm next and I don't have anyone to go up with. I didn't ask any more questions. I grabbed my keys and left the house, hands still smelling of metal and soap. My heart thundered the entire drive there. Not just because she needed me, but because I didn't know if I should have felt relief or more pain. She only called when the backup plan failed, but I was still her first choice when it mattered most. Somewhere between her 10th birthday and her 15th, I stopped being the center of her world. It wasn't all at once. That kind of shift never is. It started subtly. Missed phone calls, shorter visits, less eye contact. I used to be the first name she'd shout when she got a good grade or scored a goal. Then one day I realized she didn't even tell me about her team winning the championship. I found out through her mom's Instagram post. A snapshot of her, mid-laugh, with a gold medal slung around her neck. Ryan stood behind her, arms on her shoulders like he belonged there. I wasn't even mentioned in the caption. I'll be honest. I stared at that picture longer than I care to admit. Not out of jealousy, not even out of resentment, just confusion, because I couldn't figure out when I stopped being dad and started becoming an afterthought. After the divorce, things were civil. Cold, but civil. Melissa, my ex-wife, got remarried within 18 months. I didn't fight her. I didn't protest the man she picked. Ryan seemed decent enough, polished, confident. The kind of guy who always had a story that started with when I was in Italy or back when I ran my startup. He knew how to command a room, which is exactly what made me fade in the background whenever we were all in the same space. There was one weekend, I'll never forget it, when she was maybe 13. I'd taken her to a bookstore downtown. She used to love those kinds of days. We'd get hot chocolate, browse the shelves, talk about anything but school. That Saturday, she kept looking at her phone, texting back fast. I asked what was up. Oh, Ryan just got us tickets to the Sharks game tonight. Box seats. That was new. Ryan used to keep to his lane. Now he was scheduling events on my weekends. I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded. Cool, I said. Sounds fun. You don't mind if we cut our visit short, right? I mean, it's box seats. Box seats. I drove her back early. She didn't even notice the silence. After she left, I sat on the couch with my leftover takeout and muted the TV. I stared out the window for an hour, watching as the last light drained from the sky. That night, I typed up a message to Melissa. I never sent it. What would I say? Hey, can you tell your husband not to be too generous on my weekends? It sounded pathetic. I tried to believe it was just a phase. Teenagers push away from their parents. That's what people say, right? But it wasn't just rebellion. It was replacement. And the more I tried to hold on, the more she pulled away. She started calling Ryan Dad once in front of me. We were at her school's open house. She didn't even flinch when she said it, just pointed to him and said, "That's my dad and my mom." Then turned to me. "And this is Mark." Just Mark. Like I was her driver. Or some neighbor who happened to show up. Afterward, when we walked back to the parking lot, I didn't bring it up. I wanted to. God, did I want to. But I swallowed it. Because I'd learned by then that pushing back only made me look bitter. And if there's one thing divorced dads aren't allowed to be, it's bitter. Instead, I asked her if she was excited for the project her English teacher had mentioned in class. Yeah, kind of, she said. It's like a legacy thing. We're supposed to present someone in our family who influenced us or shaped our future. She said it like it was nothing, but I felt the weight of it. A subtle test. Maybe she'd ask me to help. Maybe that would be my moment to step back in. Spoiler, it wasn't. She never brought it up again, until that Thursday at my kitchen table, when she told me I wasn't remarkable enough. I spent the weekend after her rejection cleaning the garage. I needed something to do with my hands, something that didn't involve checking my phone every 10 minutes like some kind of emotional hostage. I found a box of her old things, crayon drawings, baby shoes, notes she used to leave me like, "Love you, Daddy," and "Best pancakes ever." I sat down on the cold cement floor and let that box break me. That's the thing about being in the background. You still remember the spotlight. You remember every second of it. The bedtime stories, the swim lessons, The nights she threw up and you held her hair back and didn't sleep a second. You remember being her whole world. And then you remember she handed it to someone else without even blinking. A few weeks before the presentation, I ran into Ryan at a coffee shop. It was one of those awkward, unavoidable things. I was grabbing my order when he walked in behind me, all smiles and sunglasses on a cloudy day. "Mark," he said, clapping me on the back like we were old pals. "Hey man, how's life?" I forced a nod. "Busy." "Yeah, same here." "Hey, listen, I wanted to thank you for being cool about the project." She was kind of nervous you'd take it the wrong way. "The wrong way," I repeated. He laughed. "You know how teens are. She just wanted to impress her friends. This is a school thing, not a personal thing." "Sure," I said. "But it was personal. It was personal as hell." Then he added, like he was offering me some sort of prize, "I'll make sure she includes you in the slideshow, at least. Maybe a picture or two." I didn't say anything. Just walked out before I said something that'd get me arrested. That week, I stopped trying. No check-ins. No reminders. If she wanted me gone, I'd give her space to miss me. Spoiler, she didn't. Not until that Tuesday. Not until the calls came flooding in. Not until her impressive stepfather bailed. And when I heard her voice on the other end of that phone, cracked, panicked, small, I felt everything I'd been stuffing down rise like a tide. My first instinct was to turn around and say no. Let Ryan fix it. But I didn't. Because no matter how deep in the background I'd been shoved, I was still her father. So I got in my truck, wiped my hands on my jeans, and drove straight to that school. No blazer, no slideshow, no practice speech. Just me. Because maybe I wasn't remarkable, but I was real. And sometimes, when the world falls apart, that's the only thing that matters. I didn't drive like a maniac, but I didn't waste time either. My hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary, my knuckles pale against the leather. I kept hearing her voice in my head on repeat. "Dad." The way it trembled, the way it barely got through the line before the tears started pushing through her words. And despite everything, despite the hurt, the months of being sidelined, the way she'd handed my spot over to another man, I still pressed the gas pedal harder. I still came running. The school came into view, that old brick building I'd once walked her into every morning when she was still small enough to hold my hand and not think twice about it. Back then, she'd hug me at the door and wave through the window until I was out of sight. Now I was lucky to get a grunt when I dropped her off. Time's cruel like that. It takes the rituals you build with someone and strips them down until all that's left is muscle memory. I parked in a rush and jogged up the front steps, not caring that my shirt was stained with sweat or that I still smelled like old copper and PVC glue from the plumbing work. The security guard at the front desk recognized me from years ago, gave me a quick nod as I passed, probably figuring something urgent had happened. He wasn't wrong. Her text had said auditorium, so I followed the muffled sound of voices and applause echoing through the hall. The second I opened the heavy door, the air inside hit me different, hot, charged with nerves and excitement. Students were lined up backstage, parents seated in rows of metal folding chairs, all angled toward a small, elevated stage. There were project boards along the sidewall, family trees, photos, names. I scanned the crowd, searching. Then I saw her. She was standing by the curtains, off to the side, gripping a flash drive so tightly her knuckles looked white. Her hair was pinned up, a little too tightly, like she tried to look older, more polished. But her face gave her away. Red eyes. Quivering lips. She was trying not to cry. When she spotted me, she froze. For a second, she didn't move, didn't even breathe. Like she couldn't believe I'd actually come. I walked over. Not fast. Just steady. "Dad," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Then she broke. All the poise and teenage pride melted off her like wax. She wrapped her arms around me, her whole body shaking. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "He said he'd come. I swear he promised. And then he canceled last minute and Mom's at work and I didn't know what to do and I tried to call you in." "Hey," I said gently, pulling back so I could see her face. "It's okay. I'm here now." Her bottom lip trembled. "Will you still do it with me?" That was the question, wasn't it? Did I still want to be her second choice? Did I want to stand on that stage, knowing the only reason I was up there was because the man she thought was more impressive had bailed. Everything in me wanted to say no, not out of spite, but because I didn't want to teach her that I would always be the fallback plan, that I'd only be respected when her plan A flaked. But there was something in her eyes that brought me back, something I hadn't seen in a long time, pure, unfiltered need. Not for a replacement, not for a savior, for me, just her dad. So I nodded. Yeah, let's do it. We stood side by side backstage, waiting for the student before her to finish. She kept checking her note cards. Her hands were shaking. I leaned down slightly and murmured, "You're gonna be fine. Just breathe." She looked up at me. I messed up, didn't I? I didn't answer that. I didn't need to. Her name was called. The announcer mispronounced our last name, but nobody cared. She walked to the microphone, her steps uneven, nerves chewing at her spine. I followed behind, quietly. I didn't wear a suit, didn't have a slideshow. I didn't need to. The stage lights were blinding, but I could still see her hands trembling. She looked out at the crowd, then back at me. "My project is about family legacy," she began, her voice quivering. "And I want to talk about my dad." There was a pause. Then she added, "The one who showed up." That hit the room like a sharp breath. A few parents murmured. I felt something catch in my throat. She went on, stumbling a little at first, but finding her rhythm. "My dad doesn't own a company. He doesn't travel the world. He doesn't post motivational videos. But he's steady, the kind of steady that doesn't shake when things fall apart." She looked over at me again, eyes glassy. "He taught me how to ride a bike. He stayed up with me when I had nightmares. He helped me finish every science fair project, even the one with the exploding volcano that ruined his shirt. He was there, always, even when I forgot to be." She paused again, this time letting the silence settle. I thought I needed someone remarkable to stand beside me today, but I realized I already had someone who was. I just didn't see it. My chest ached. I wanted to pull her into a hug right there, but I let her finish. She clicked the remote. Photos flickered across the screen, me and her at a zoo, at the lake, her on my shoulders when she was 5. I hadn't even known she still had those. The applause at the end was warm, respectful, but it wasn't the clapping that mattered. It was the way she looked at me afterward, with something new in her eyes. Regret, gratitude, maybe both. Backstage, she hugged me again, tighter this time. "I'm sorry I said you weren't remarkable." I didn't correct her. Didn't say, "You didn't just say it." You believed it. That wasn't the time. It wouldn't help either of us. I just nodded. "Thanks for coming," she whispered. That's when it hit me. I wasn't there for the applause. I never was. I was there because even when your kid forgets your worth, you don't forget theirs. But something else was shifting too. Something subtle. Not a break. A boundary. Because showing up didn't mean I had to keep getting hurt. And I wasn't about to play the backup forever. She chose me this time. Now I needed to decide what that really meant going forward. I didn't expect a parade. I didn't expect balloons, or applause that lasted longer than a few minutes, or for my daughter to suddenly see me in Technicolor. That's not how life works. It's not how people work, especially not teenagers. But somewhere deep down, I think I did expect something. A shift. A change in the way she looked at me. A thank you that came with action, not just words. But 2 days after the presentation, she went right back to her routine. Not cold. Not cruel. Just indifferent. She texted me a simple, "Thanks again, Dad," smiley face, on Thursday night. And that was it. Back to the usual schedule. Back to short answers and empty silences. Back to asking Ryan to take her shopping or help her with college essay edits. Apparently, I was good enough to bail her out, but not to stick around when things were calm. I kept trying to make sense of it. I replayed the presentation in my head 100 times. The photos, the speech, the look in her eyes. Was it genuine? Or was it desperation dressed up in sentimentality? My friend, Wes, who's been divorced longer than I have, put it bluntly. "Man, she needed you in a panic. That doesn't mean she's ready to give you back the seat at the table." Kids these days are loyal to what feels cool, not what's been consistent. That stung, mostly because it was true. I stopped reaching out for a few days. Not as a punishment, just space. I wanted to see if she'd reach out first. If maybe the moment we shared had left a dent in her habits. But the only texts I got were from my bank, my boss, and spam emails about fixing my credit score. I kept thinking about what she said that day on stage. I just didn't see it. And that line stayed with me. Because it wasn't just that she didn't see me, it's that she saw someone else instead. Someone shinier. Someone who hadn't earned the title dad, but wore it anyway, like a rental tux. On Saturday, Melissa called. "You've been distant," she said, like that was some kind of crime. "I've been quiet," I corrected. "Is there a difference?" "Yes," I said. "One is healthy. The other is childish." She huffed. "Look, I get it. She hurt your feelings." I nearly laughed. Hurt my feelings? Like I was a middle schooler who didn't get invited to the sleepover. Like years of being replaced could be summarized as hurt feelings. "I'm not doing this to get back at her," I said. "I'm just done bending over backward." "So you're giving up?" "I'm giving boundaries," I said, sharper this time. "There's a difference." There was a long pause. She didn't argue after that. Later that night, my daughter texted me. "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a good 5 minutes. She came over the next day. Didn't bring a backpack or schoolwork. Just herself. She sat on the same couch she'd sat on since she was 4, legs tucked under her, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. "I thought things would feel different after the presentation," she said softly. I nodded. "Me too." She looked down. I meant everything I said. I wasn't faking it. "I know," I said. "But meaning something for 5 minutes doesn't erase the last few years." "I didn't realize I was pushing you out," she said. "I thought you were just, always there. Like, no matter what." "That's not love," I said quietly. "That's convenience." She winced. And then she said it. The line that cut deeper than anything she'd ever said before. "Why couldn't you just be this version of you all the time?" I blinked. "What version is that?" I asked slowly. She shrugged. "The one who showed up and said all the right things. The one who held it together on stage and didn't make it awkward. The one who made me feel like I could rely on you." I stared at her, something turning in my chest, slow and sharp. "That version of me," I said, voice low, "is the same version who made your lunches for 7 years straight. The one who taught you how to tie your shoes and watched every terrible school play and stayed up till 3 a.m. during your science fair meltdowns." She looked away. "You didn't stop seeing that version of me," I continued. "You just stopped valuing it." Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, "So what now?" Now. That was the question, wasn't it? "I'm still your father," I said. "That doesn't change. But I think you need to figure out who I actually am, without comparing me to someone who's only been here for the highlight reel." She nodded slowly. "And until then," I added, "I need some space. Not because I'm angry, but because I need to stop hoping for things you're not ready to give." She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just nodded again. It was the quietest goodbye we'd ever had. She left an hour later. The front door closed gently, like she was afraid slamming it might break something else. And maybe it already had. Not everything explodes. Some things just dissolve. That night, I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for a follow-up text. I didn't sit by the window like a father in a movie waiting for a miracle. I poured a drink, opened a book, and let the silence settle. Because sometimes love means showing up, and sometimes love means letting go. It's strange how peace doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't announce itself or come bursting through the door like some big, triumphant return. No, peace comes in quiet moments. Long pauses. The kind where you realize the silence in your life isn't loneliness, it's clarity. After that last conversation with my daughter, I stopped checking my phone like I used to. I still answered if she called, still responded if she reached out. But I stopped waiting. That part of me. The dad who lived for the little pings, the hopeful notifications, the maybe this time texts, he finally went to sleep. And in his place, there was just me. I started spending more time with myself. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it's real. I cleaned out my garage for real this time, not as a coping mechanism, but because it was time. I started cooking again, things I liked, not things I hoped she'd want to come over for. I watched bad movies on purpose. I sat outside on quiet evenings with a beer and let my mind go quiet, something I hadn't done in years. I didn't stop loving her. Let me make that clear. I never will. But I stopped sacrificing myself to prove it. Wes came over one night with a six-pack and some leftover Thai food. He'd been through the ringer with his own kids, two sons who didn't talk to him for a year after his ex moved them across state lines. "She text you lately?" he asked, between bites of pad CEW. "Not since last weekend." He nodded like he understood. "It's a hard thing, huh? Drawing the line with your own kid. It's the only thing that's kept me sane." He chuckled. "You know, when I finally stopped chasing my sons, it felt like I was giving up. But months later, my youngest called out of nowhere. Said, 'I guess I thought you'd always be there no matter what I did.' I told him, that's exactly why I had to stop being there for a bit. I let those words sit with me. That's the thing no one tells you about parenting, especially when the family breaks apart. You're still expected to hold the line. Be the bigger person. Be the unshakable one, even when you're the one bleeding out emotionally. But no one talks about what happens when you keep being the bigger person. You end up standing alone. I saw her the next week. She showed up at my door unannounced, in a hoodie and old jeans, clutching a water bottle like it was some kind of shield. She looked like she hadn't slept much. I was at Mom's, but I didn't want to be there, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. No big scene. No questions. She sat on the couch, silent. For a while, we just existed in the same room. I was okay with that. Then she said, "Ryan got promoted. He's going to New York a few times a month now." I raised an eyebrow. "You excited?" She shrugged. "I don't know." That told me more than anything else. Then, after a long silence, "I think I liked the idea of him more than I actually liked him." I nodded slowly. I didn't rub it in. Didn't say, "I told you so." I just let her say it. She kept going. "I think I thought if I built this perfect family with him, I wouldn't have to deal with everything else. The divorce, the resentment, the hard stuff. People chase comfort," I said, "even when it's fake." She looked at me. "I think I messed up with you." "No," I said. "You just learned the hard way that not everything that sparkles is gold." A quiet smile touched her lips. "I miss you sometimes," she said. That word, sometimes, it stung more than I expected. But I understood it. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just being honest. "I miss you too," I said. "But I need to protect myself now. I can't keep showing up only when everyone else lets you down." "I know." And the way she said it, calm, even, full of quiet truth. It told me she was starting to get it, starting to grow up. I told her she could stay for dinner, and she did. We didn't talk much. We ate spaghetti, watched a rerun of a game show we both used to laugh at, and then she left. No big moment. No full circle hug. But it was enough. Later that week, Melissa called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "I don't know what's going on between you two, but she's been different lately. Quiet. Distant. If you're giving her the cold shoulder, you need to cut it out. You're her father." I listened to that message while folding laundry, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel rage. I felt pity. Pity for Melissa, who always expected me to be the doormat because she'd never learned how to exist in a relationship where someone actually had boundaries. I didn't respond. That silence said enough. That weekend, I went on a date. It was the first in a while. Her name was Evelyn. She worked at a bookstore and laughed at her own jokes. I didn't tell her much about the family drama, just that I had a daughter, and things were complicated. She said, "Aren't they always?" That made me smile. By Sunday evening, I was in my garage again, organizing tools, when I found an old school project my daughter made back in 3rd grade. It was one of those paper cutouts where kids write about their hero. She'd drawn me, big hands, a wide smile, standing beside her with the words, "My dad is my hero because he always shows up." I stared at that for a long while. She was right back then. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to remember it now. It happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary, like most endings are. I was walking through the house with a grocery bag in one hand and a voicemail notification flashing on my phone screen. Nothing dramatic. Just a red circle on a screen. I had no idea it would be the one that stuck with me longer than anything she ever said in person. I wasn't expecting it. We'd been coasting, speaking now and then, texting on birthdays and holidays, but nothing close. Nothing consistent. Just echoes of a bond that used to be stronger than blood. I put the groceries on the counter, let the dog out back, and finally tapped play. There was a pause. A small inhale. Then her voice. "Hey, Dad. I know you're probably busy. Or maybe you're just tired of hearing from me. I wouldn't blame you. Right then, I stopped moving. Just stood still, half frozen, the phone still in my hand. I wanted to say something I should have said a long time ago. You were always enough. Always. Even when I was too wrapped up in everything else to see it. You didn't need to be remarkable. You already were. Her voice cracked a little. She coughed. Regained control. I know I treated you like a backup plan. Like you were this steady bench warmer I could call in when the star player bailed. And I hate that. I hate that I made you feel like that was your role. Because you were never second place, Dad. You just weren't loud about being first. That hit harder than I expected. Ryan's gone, by the way. He took a job in New York permanently. We barely talk. And I think I was clinging to the idea of him because it let me avoid facing everything that changed after you and Mom split. But it didn't work. You can't fake your way through family. Another pause. You're the only one who never faked it. You were the real thing. The one who stayed. Even when I didn't deserve it. Even when I said awful things just to sound cool, or distant, or grown up. I wasn't grown up. I was just lost. A shaky breath followed. The kind that comes when someone's trying not to cry. Anyway, I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say it. In case you were still wondering if I saw you. I do. I really, really do. Click. That was it. No follow-up text. No second message. Just those words, hanging in my living room like the scent of something nostalgic. I sat down on the couch and stared out the window. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. I just breathed. Because something inside me finally settled. Not fixed. Not healed. But quiet. That's the strange part about parenting. You don't always get a big redemption arc. Sometimes the apology comes after the damage. Sometimes it doesn't come until you've already moved on. And even when it does, it's not a magic eraser. It's not a reset button. But it matters. It matters to know that the version of you who waited, who hurt, who kept the door unlocked even when it stayed closed for months, that version of you wasn't wasted. I didn't call her back right away. I didn't text either. I let her have the last word. Not out of pettiness, but because I finally understood that I didn't need to chase her anymore. That voice message didn't repair everything. It didn't erase years of silence, or betrayal, or being made to feel like a dull shadow in the presence of someone flashier. But it gave me something I didn't realize I'd been waiting for. Recognition. And that's what I'd always wanted. Not credit. Not praise. Just the truth. She saw me. So I stood up, walked to the hallway where her old drawings still hung in cheap frames, and touched the corner of one. It was crayon on printer paper. Me, with stick legs and a giant smile, next to her, and the words, "Me and my daddy, the best team." Maybe we weren't a team anymore, but I had played my part. And I played it well. I still do. Just differently now. The kind of father who loves without permission. The kind who forgives, but doesn't forget. The kind who knows his worth, whether it's recognized or not. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love? Did it bring you closer, or did it set you free? I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications if you want more raw, real stories like this one.